Welcome to Flavour Text, a podcast where we examine the intersection between lore, story and gameplay in Arkham Horror the card game. I'm CrabbyTerror8 and I'm joined as usual by my capital co-host, Kevling. Hello Kevling, how are you?
Capital? Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Capital, come on, give me some context.
Just capital.
Okay. I'll take it as a positive.
Take it as a positive, absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't mean old and built up, don't worry. It's something more positive than that.
Cool.
How are you, Kevling?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Just recovered from my cold and various lurgies. And yes.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So feeling much better. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
What have you been up to games-wise then lately?
Let me think. I finished the Elden Ring DLC, and
did you?
Yes, did all of that with lots of help, of course. So I finished that, and I've started Red Dead Redemption 2. I've literally
I love Red Dead Redemption 2.
Started it. So.
Have you played it before?
No, I played Red Dead Redemption, but not number 2. So I've literally done the sort of opening scenarios, and that's it. That's as far as I've gotten so far. And apart from that, finished Hemlock Vale, but started the Fortnite Thursday group we've started Innsmouth Conspiracy. So back to that, and
how's that going?
Yeah, good. I haven't played it since COVID, I think, when it first came out. It came out during COVID from memory, because I remember playing it. I didn't, not in person. It was all sort of remote and everything. So
yes, yeah,
I'm really enjoying it so far. It's good. It's good. I quite like the story and the flashbacks and all that kind of thing, and the flooding. It's all, it's great. And apart from that, Father's Day and birthdays came around, so I've got both seasons of Final Girl, so I've been playing
nice.
that, and in the second season you get the playmats as well, so I've got the playmats out, and I'm playing Dr. Fright, which is sort of, Nightmare on Elm Street on Maple Lane, and
that's a season 1.
Yes,
isn't it,
that's right.
Yes,
yeah. Really enjoying playing it. It's a lot of fun. So
I've only got season 2, and I've not played as much of it as I should have. I've played the Thing one and the Alien one a few times,
Yep.
But I don't think I've played any of the others. No, but yes, I do like it, and it is on my list of things I really need to get my money's worth out of.
So really enjoying it. I mean, for a solo experience, it's fantastic. Really, really great fun. So I'm very much enjoying that. I've been playing Wingspan as well, and got all the bits of that and all the expansions of that. So I've been playing that as well. So I've been doing lots and lots.
Awesome.
What about yourself?
Right. Board game wise, I've been playing the Seventh Citadel. I think we talked about that last time. I can't remember. So I finished off the first threat I played, which is what they call their campaigns, and I've started the next one. I don't know why I'm glancing over to my desk on my left, which is where it's all still set up, but it's no good on an audio podcast, is it? So I think I'm probably about 3 or 4 scenarios into this second one called the Drums of Desolation. But yes, really enjoying it, and a little bit like Arkham, it's interesting to see how they throw new mechanics and things out that are completely out of the blue. Like all of the cards are square, and all of the cards form a map, and you put them out and you move your character around the map. A little bit like the Arkham locations and what have you. And then I got to the end of this scenario, and it says, right, clear the board and put out this one card. And all it was the bow of a boat with sea around it, and it says, place your character on the boat.
Right.
And then there was only one thing you could do there, which was like look out and see what you could see.
Right.
And then that little sort of mini phase of the adventure played from there, where, you can see something in the water. Do you get in the water? Right, move your character into the water now. Now turn to page so-and-so. And then it's like, well, if you're in the water, then this happens. But if you're still on the boat, then this happens. And it all started a little sort of branching narrative, which it had never done before, which it was really quite clever. I enjoyed that a little bit.
That's awesome.
Arkham-wise, my group finished Hemlock Vale yesterday.
Yep.
I say finished Hemlock Vale yesterday. Hemlock Vale finished us yesterday. We had a terrible time with the Abyss deck in that 2 of the 3 of us completely missed our option, our chance to get our character cards back. Spoilers if you've not played the end of Hemlock Vale. Then the 2 of us that failed to get our characters back died, and if you die at that, if you go insane at that point, that's the end of the game. So there was only one of the 3 of us left to carry on, and so we just decided, you know what, we're not doing this. We've lost. We took the loss, and but I really enjoyed Hemlock Vale. In fairness, I don't think I paid as much attention to the story as I should have been.
Yeah, I was the same.
Like, the campaign, each scenario would start, if you're friendly with so-and-so, I can't remember, I can't even remember who so-and-so is. Yeah. What are we even doing here?
Yeah.
But I suppose that's partly the downside when you probably only play once a month or so.
Exactly. I find that with Gloomhaven as well. Like, I can't follow the story because, like you say, if you're not playing it daily or something, you just forget what the story is, and then you come back to it and you can't remember what you were doing and where you were. It's kind of hard to keep track.
But at least in terms of knowing what's going on, with us having just finished it last season, we're doing Return to Forgotten Age next. So I'll have thanks to the podcast, recent podcast, I'll have a better idea of what's going on. And I'm running that one as well, so
nice.
That will at least help me remember what's going on if I'm running it.
It's almost like you need a little kind of like on TV shows and things. They have like last time, and they kind of get you up to previously on.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I did enjoy Hemlock Vale. I like the sort of interludes where you're wandering around the village and chatting to people and exploring and trying to befriend everybody and finding out clues about what's really going on.
Yeah.
Really like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
So video game wise, about probably a year ago, I bought an Xbox Series S purely to play Starfield.
Right.
And I subscribed to Game Pass because I thought, I'm not going to go and spend 70 quid on a game I'm not sure if I'm going to like. Yeah. And I played it for a few hours and it didn't really grab me, and then I've sold the Xbox and what have you. And then it was on sale the other week on the Steam, so I've bought it and I'm playing it on the Steam Deck, and in 2 weeks I've put something like 50 hours into it.
Wow. Okay.
I am absolutely loving it. I think part of it is being able to play it on the Steam Deck is I can just have a bit of a wander around, do an explore while we're watching telly, that sort of thing, and I'm not hogging the TV. It doesn't run perfectly on the Steam Deck, but it runs good enough for me. Right. Thoroughly enjoying it. And then the DLC expansion comes out at the end of this month, so I'm most probably going to be buying that as well. But thoroughly enjoying Starfield at the moment.
I've got that. I haven't played it yet. I've got it for the Xbox, but I haven't actually played it. It's sitting there staring at me. So I'll have to give it a go. Is it anything like Mass Effect at all?
There's no aliens as such. It's basically humans that have settled far from Earth after Earth got devastated, basically. Not far from Earth. You can still go back to our solar system. It's in the area you can explore. Right. But then there's basically 4 sort of different factions have set up that are sort of in alliance and sort of not. Right. So I think it's I can't remember what the United Colonies, the Free Star Collective, and I'm forgetting what the third one's called. Not that it matters if for someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about. And then there is a 4th group that the game doesn't really touch on, and this expansion's going to be all about them.
Right.
The Varun, who is sort of like a religious cult that worships the Great Serpent. So there may be a little something a little Lovecraftian there. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, okay.
But no, thoroughly enjoying it. There's loads of things you can do. If you play Fallout 4, there's a whole like base building mini game in there as well, and ship building as well. You can build your own ships. and they all lock together, little interlocking Lego pieces, and then that is your ship, and it has a little balancing mechanism to make sure your ship's flyable once you've built it before you can actually go out and use it. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I will definitely have to check that one out when I finish Red Dead Redemption 2, which is what I'm doing at the moment. So
that will be about another 40 hours,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. The other thing I was going to mention, was
something about Netflix. You said,
So on Netflix, I watched this British. I knew nothing about it. It just sort of came up, as a recommendation called Bodies. Yeah, and it's on Netflix. It's a British show, and it's a sci-fi police procedural, and it's really, really good. The premise, and it's based on a graphic novel of the same name. And
hang on, is this the one with the murder in different timelines?
That's the one.
Yes, I have seen it. Yes.
Yeah. So this dead body turns up in a lane, sort of naked with a gunshot through the eye in a lane in London in 1890, 1941, 2023 and 2053 or something simultaneously.
Yeah, it's the same body.
Yes.
Different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it's really good. So,
It is. I really enjoyed that. Yes.
Really fantastic. A bit of time travel shenanigans and whatnot, and that's great. So, really enjoyed that. So, where were we at? No, it seems like weeks, months, years ago, Kevling. Where were we at with our Circle Undone campaign?
Well, you're asking the wrong person. I got the wrong deck of cards out ready for this podcast. That's how long it is since we last did an episode. Yes, we are about to embark on the wages of sin, aren't we?
That's right.
So it's a sort of a I'm trying to remember what it is now. It's something about the graves of the witches, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah. So we've been into the witch house,
gallows,
and we'd been to the witch house and encountered Brown Jenkin and Keziah and all that kind of carry on, and that had sort of led to some insights around witchcraft, but it kind of left us, okay. We've been to the witch house, done that, and then it kind of left us hanging. And then, yes, you don't even go back to the Silver Twilight Lodge and go, hey, went to the witch house, dudes, or anything. You just kind of are left at the end of the scenario with not really sure where you're going or what you're doing next. And then you go into the wages of sin. Yeah.
Right. So, shall we pick up the introductory text?
Yeah, great idea.
Ever since your encounter with the ghost in the witch house, you've been forced to reconsider everything you know about life and death. Keziah Mason died over 200 years ago, but her spirit remains in the spectral mist, the same mist you encountered in Joseph Miger's manor. One question lingers in your mind as you consider the events that have transpired. Does Keziah's spirit linger because of the mist, or is the mist caused by her presence? Which is the disease and which is the symptom? The more you delve into Arkham's history of witchcraft and persecution, the more restless you become. Night after night you are assaulted by terrible dreams of death and decay, of guilt and sin. There is an evil that dwells in this city, an evil that has long remained hidden in the darkness of Arkham's past. What's worse, your inquiry has reached an impasse. You believe that if you can find this coven of witches you saw in the woods that fateful night, you might be able to learn more about Keziah Mason or of this unspoken evil. As you go through your morning routine, your eyes drift across one of the smaller headlines of today's newspaper. Ghost sightings on Hangman's Hill. Residents of Uptown claim to have seen human shapes in the thick fog emanating from Hangman's Brook. Couldn't be a coincidence, could it? Then the realization dawns on you. If it is the witches you seek, the only place you can be certain to find them is 6 feet underground, in the place where professed witches were executed all those years ago. Searching for spectres in a graveyard may not be your safest bet, but you're not sure one can stay safe in this city anymore.
There you go.
It's a bit of a leap, isn't it?
It's a huge leap.
I know where we can find out more information on these witches. In their dead bodies.
This is what drives me mad about this campaign. I don't know what they were I'm sorry, but I don't know what they were thinking. It's like, it's just these huge leaps of logic. They're sort of stringing scenarios together in these sort of flashes of insights that come from nowhere. I mean, I just find it a little bit, maddening that they kind of did it this way. I don't quite understand why they thought this was, a way to kind of string the scenarios together. But in my mind, it just, I don't know. I find it quite annoying, really.
It's almost as though they went, right, we'll have one in a house, and we'll have one in a graveyard, and we'll have one in the woods, right? And then, like, how can we join them together? Let's just say you're a newspaper article. Yeah.
I mean, the background is interesting. This idea of, like they say, is Keziah causing the mist, or is the mist, is it the disease or is it the symptoms? So this idea of, are the dead coming to life because of someone else, or is someone, it's like, what's going on? But then the thing is, there's this unnecessary kind of, and the idea of witchcraft and evil being kind of part of the history of Arkham. I really like that idea, and that was Lovecraft's idea. But then these sort of leaps of logic. I mean, wouldn't it have been easier if we'd gone back to the Silver Twilight Lodge and said, this is what happened, and then they could say, well, you have a discussion with the Silver Twilight Lodge, and there's you know what I mean? They could have done it in a way that actually made much more sense. And the other thing is, the Silver Twilight Lodge has disappeared. Well, what happened to all of that? You know what I mean? All that Joseph Meiger and all that is just gone. It's like it doesn't exist. It's sort of so kind of disconnected in that way. It lacks this kind of clear narrative kind of logic to it. That's really kind of quite confounding in a way. Yeah, anyway. So we're off to the graveyards. Yay!
Yay!
And the other weird thing is, why would you think that? Because when we saw the witches, they were very much alive. They weren't dead. They weren't like buried in the ground. They were alive witches performing a ritual in a forest. You know what I mean? They weren't ghostly witches.
Yes, they were current modern day witches, weren't they? Yes, and I mean, obviously in the last scenario, there was a sort of a you were transported back to Keziah's house. So yeah, you can understand maybe there's a link there between those, because they are the witches that are now dead. But yeah, like you say, there are current modern day witches trying to perform these rituals. Why not go and find them again?
Yes, right.
No. Let's go to the graves. That's where we're going to find out information.
Yeah, it's just when I read that, I just thought, really? Oh my goodness! Okay, all right. We're off to the graveyard.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, the very spookily, is it Hangman's Brook, which sounds very spooky, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, yes.
And the setup's relatively straightforward, but it has this quirk of introducing spectral versions of locations and enemies, doesn't it?
Yes.
So we end up basically with two encounter decks. The normal encounter deck and the spectral encounter deck.
Yeah, exactly.
So the basic rules are, if it says spectral, use the spectral one. If it doesn't, use the ordinary one.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's effectively it. This take about half a page to explain that.
It's just a second encounter deck, so it's like, okay. Yeah. So, fair enough.
There's different versions of... there's random choices of two for most of the locations as well, so that adds a little bit of variety in it each time you play.
Yeah, that's right. But apart from that, it's, even though it sounds like a very spooky kind of graveyardy place, it's pretty standard stuff, really. Apart from that, although there is a bit of extra interest around the heretics, as they're called, which we'll get to, but apart from that, it's pretty straightforward. You're right. Shall I read out the agenda and act? There's not much to the agenda. Shall I just read these two out?
Yeah, sure.
So the agenda 1A is just another tarot thing. It's the Hanged Man 12, and it's got a suitable image of a hanged man.
I know I've said it before, but I do love this tarot card art.
Yes, yeah,
It's
Yeah.
fantastic, isn't it?
It is. I think the tarot aspect of it is actually one of the stronger themes of the campaign, and the tarot cards themselves. Great idea and great design.
The ones that they did in the return, yes, and that really lets you appreciate the art because it's reproduced on large cards.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember before this came out, people were getting really excited about the tarot and the theme of it, and the theme of the Wheel of Fortune, but it didn't quite kind of coalesce into what the people were sort of expecting.
No.
I don't think.
No, I think they kind of built it up in something it never was going to be. Yes, that's what fandom never does. That does
exactly.
it?
So, yeah, the Hangman 12, surrender yourself to the path of sacrifice, consider the good of all before you act, let go. And it's an H Shroud Doom, that's the agenda. And then Act 1A, in pursuit of the dead, it's just got a picture of people poking around a grave site, suitably spooky at night. And it just says, you have come to Hangman's Hill to investigate reports of ghost sightings and strange activity in the woods the last few nights, and to learn more about the witches who once hid in Arkham's past. Witches who have since emerged from the shadows in pursuit of some unholy purpose. And it just says locations cannot be flipped over, which becomes sort of more apparent later. And then it's just 3 clues per investigator, and that's it.
Touching on what you were saying earlier, it's just that odd bit, isn't it? It says, you've come to the graveyard to learn more about the witches. How? How will you learn more about witches in a graveyard? Other than a newspaper article said that someone saw some ghosts there.
It's yes, it's all very vague. So yes.
Yeah. And then just looking at the scenario card, just to give us a hint of what we might be up against. The skull is -X, where X is 1 higher than the number of unfinished business in the victory display. So that's obviously something that's going to be happening during this scenario. The cultist is -3, and until the end of the round, each heretic gets +1 fight and +1 evade, and I seem to remember that catching us out a few times. The tablet is also -3, but if you fail, you trigger the forced ability on unfinished business, as if it were the end of the round. And the Elder Thing is -2, but if you fail and it's an attack or an evasion, then you resolve haunted abilities. So, number-wise, it's not too bad, but it does, obviously, there's lots of things being triggered there that can make things even worse.
Yes. So I guess... yeah, so it's likely, given that you've got 8 Doom for a first agenda, that it's probably likely you're going to get the 3 clues per investigator in the first instance. Fairly comfortably, I would have thought, in, 8 or 9 rounds.
Yeah.
But maybe the best thing to do, should we go through the locations to start with?
Yes, good idea.
Is there nice location?
I'm just going to get mine out.
Yeah.
There's some of them we've got 2 versions to read, haven't we?
Yes.
And then I think some of them come out later.
So randomly choose one of the 2 gallows locations, one of the 2 heretics' graves locations, one of the 2 chapel attic locations, and one of the 2 chapel crypt locations. Put them into play and remove the other versions. Then put Haunted Fields, Abandoned Chapel, and Hammond's Brook into play. So I think that's all of them. So, yeah, they're all out.
Haunted Fields, okay, yeah, I'm misremembering.
Yeah.
So in terms of... So locations cannot be flipped over, so it probably makes sense for us to run through the ordinary sides first.
Yes.
And then we'll pick up the spectral sides when, at the point that might trigger.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Makes sense.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, do you want to take the first one?
Yeah, I'll kick off with Hangman's Brook, which is a 4 shroud, 1 clue per investigator location. It's a lovely autumnal scene of a river with looks lovely, not scary at all. And I think this is where we start the game at Hangman's Brook. It's got a action resign. Whose bright idea was this anyway? Which I think is a pretty funny thing to say considering what we've just been talking about. It's like, why the hell are we here?
Yeah, what a stupid idea. Come into a blooming graveyard.
Yes. And it's got a little bit of flavour text here. Originating from a natural spring near the peak of Hangman's Hill, the narrow, shallow brook fills the surrounding woods with a quiet, peaceful babbling. The brook winds down the hill southward, forming the western border of Arkham's uptown district.
So I shall take Haunted Fields, which is connected to the Hangman's Brook. So this is 3 shroud, 2 clues per investigator, and it's sort of, I'm trying to work out what that artwork is. Is that just a field, or is that supposed to be the graveyard? I'm trying to work it out now.
Yeah, I think that's the graveyard.
Like lots of illuminated sort of dots in that field, isn't there? And then with the woods behind. Okay, so it says each spectral enemy at Haunted Fields gets a +1 horror value. And then for flavour text, we have few creatures called the wooded fields surrounding Hangman's Hill home. Patches of dark, pointed witchweed blossoms have choked out all other flora. Maybe that's what they are then, the blossoms. And wisps of thin grey fog seep through the air like long fingers reaching out for something to grasp. And we have a victory point there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the picture doesn't quite reflect the description, really, does it? It's...
No, you got a bit of fog in the distance.
Yeah. The connected to that is the abandoned chapel, which has this picture of this sort of chapel with sort of creepers and things sort of growing into it, hence it's abandoned. It's a 2 shroud, 2 clue per investigator location, so fairly low shroud with quite a lot of clues on it. During the mythos phase, each investigator in abandoned chapel gets -1 to each skill, so yeah, if you hang around here it's a bit rough. This old broken down chapel has been abandoned for several decades now. Perhaps once it was a place of sanctity. These days it is only a source of sober melancholy.
Excellent. So connected to the chapel, we have the chapel crypt. So again, this is now we're starting on to the locations that there are 2 different versions of. So for the chapel crypt, we've got 2 versions. They are both 6 shroud and they both have 0 clues. So in terms of the location itself, there's no real difference, and it's a very evocative piece of artwork with sort of cobwebs and it's a crypt basically, isn't it? Yeah. So the first one is while there are no ready enemies at chapel crypt, it gets -3 shroud. So that 6 will drop to a 3 when there's no enemies there, or when they're exhausted. Or the alternate version is when there are no hex treacheries among investigators' threat areas, it gets -3 shroud.
Interesting.
I would imagine the first one would be easier to achieve than the second one. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it's the same flavour text on both because it is the same location. A narrow stone staircase guides you deep below the chapel, where those of good repute were given proper, in inverted commas, burials. In a far corner of the room, a strange, dusty contraption is connected to one of the coffins, as dead as everything else in this room.
Interesting.
Interesting.
I don't know what the contraption's all about, but anyway. And then there's the chapel attic, which I'm assuming is connected to the chapel as well. This chapel's quite...
Yeah.
This, again, has 2 versions, which are... There's no flavour text with these. It's, as you would expect, a typical attic with lots of bits and pieces in there. One version is just 8 shroud and no clues. The other version is 4 shroud and no clues. The 8 shroud location says, while investigating chapel attic, add the number of cards in your hand to your skill value for the investigation. So, as long as you've got lots of cards, you're going to be okay. And then with the 4 shroud version, it says, forced after you draw a non-weakness card from your deck, while at chapel attic, place that card face down beneath chapel attic out of play. Reaction trigger: after you successfully investigate chapel attic, add each card beneath it to its owner's hand. So there's no clues here. So I suppose you...
It's like it's designed to slow you down, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting.
It's going to take any cards that you draw, and then you've got to investigate to get them back.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go.
I'm not quite sure how thematically that fits in with exploring an attic.
No. But there we go.
Yeah. Okay, so moving over to the other side of the map. So these are the locations that are connected to the haunted fields.
Yep.
I've got heretics' graves. So they both have the same flavour text. Only witches and criminals occupy these graves. Their tombstones have been left unmarked so as to forever erase the memory of their foul deeds. I guess that's a sort of a mirror of the chapel crypt then, where the proper burials took place. So they are, one of them is 4 shroud with no clues, the other one is 7 shroud with no clues. The 4 shroud version is: forced after a witch enemy at heretics' graves is defeated, discard the top 2 cards of the standard encounter deck. And the 7 version is: while investigating heretics' graves, add your willpower value to your skill value for the investigation.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then finally we have the gallows, which is, as you would expect, it's some gallows, is made out of wood. 2 versions again, same flavour text. The gallows were decommissioned in 1901 after the execution of serial murderer Piper Thomason. Even so, the wooden platform still stands atop Hangman's Hill, a memorial to the brutality of humankind. 1 version is X Shroud, no clues. Quite a lot of locations with no clues, actually, aren't there? And X is the number of Geist enemies in play. So the Shroud there is the number of Geist enemies in play. And the other version is 3 Shroud. The gallows gets +1 Shroud for each witch enemy in play. But again, there's no clues here on this side. So, yep. So there we go. Quite a lot of zero clue locations. So in fact, even though you only need a certain number of clues, there's a relatively few. There's only 3 locations that actually have clues. That's the abandoned chapel, the haunted fields, and Hangman's Brook.
And that's a total of 5 clues per investigator between them, and we need 3 each.
It's almost like the idea that you've got to kind of investigate the fields, the brook, and the first part of the chapel in order to progress the story. You know what I mean? You're just looking around the initial parts rather than everything, so to speak.
Yeah. And actually, you could choose one side or the other, couldn't you? It's the fields on one side and the chapel on the other. You get your 1 clue per investigator at the brook, where you both start, and then your choice of either going the chapel way or the fields way will get you the other 2 clues per investigator.
And the thing, I suppose,
so you could do it without splitting up anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the thing to point out with this one is that they're not hidden locations. You know what I mean? They're not like they're shrouded.
Yes, before you go there, yes.
You actually know where the clues are. So it's not like you're uncovering going, oh, another 0 shroud location place. Oh, no. That wouldn't happen with this one. So it's yeah. Which is kind of weird, because that's almost like you know where to go. But I think the way to read it is you start in these more peripheral places first before you move on, kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so at that point then, so the act will most probably have advanced because we'll have explored those first few locations. So if I advance the act, Act 1B is called The Barrier Between. Soft chanting guides you to a gloomy clearing near the abandoned chapel. A circle of witchweed surrounds the clearing, swaying gently in the breeze. At the centre of the clearing, a cloaked woman kneels in front of an unmarked grave, far from the remainder of the graveyard. You watch in quiet for a few minutes while the woman sings an old sombre melody. It reminds you somewhat of a child's lullaby, soothing but with a dark gravity that betrays its purpose. As soon as the song ends, the woman's cloak dissolves into mist and she vanishes in a swirl of shadows. Spawn 1 set-aside heretic enemy at each of the following locations. gallows, heretic's grave, chapel attic, and chapel crypt. So that's the 4 0 clue locations that that have all got different versions of. Had 2 clues per investigator to each of those locations and 1 clue per investigator to each other location. So check the campaign log. If you have 3 or more mementos listed under mementos discovered, you understand the tragic lyrics behind the witch's song, and each investigator puts into play 1 set aside spectral web asset under his or her control. And just so the spectral web asset is, it's got an action on it. You may spend 1. Investigators at your location may spend 1 to 3 clues as a group to fight, and we can only use this ability on a Geist enemy, and we can use our willpower instead of fists for the attack, and we get +X skill value and deal +X damage, where X is the amount of clues you spent. Right, so it's 1 to 3 to do 1 to 3 damage, extra damage, and a 1 to 3 skill boost.
Yes.
Using your willpower.
Yes. It's like a special weapon. I'm not sure how it's linked to the things you've found, but for some reason you've got some knowledge or something that allowed you to use this spectral web to do damage to spectres, geists, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how finding 3 mementos will let you suddenly know how to do this.
No.
See, just looking back at the book, what's the mementos we got? We got Gilman's journal, Keziah's formula, a worn crucifix. I think there might be something in one of the earlier ones. So you're going to have to edit this silence out.
That's all right.
Oh, a mesmerising flute on one of the earlier ones as well.
See, once again, it's
and a scrap of torn shadow.
Ah, yes. Yep.
And ritual components.
There you go.
So, none of... I don't know. That doesn't seem... I don't seem to understand how you could... How having those 3 lets you understand... Having any 3 of those gives you enough understanding to A, interpret what the lyrics meant on that song, and B, suddenly know how to fight geists with your willpower.
I know. It's just sort of you just have this thing where whereas, for example, going back to my favourite topic, if you'd spoken to the Silver Twilight Lodge and they said, right, we've got to go and check this out. Here's some special thing to do that we've worked out or we've got for you to use. Something. It's a bit like in Dunwich where you've got the, what's it called? Undimensioned and unseen. You've got the power of Ibn Ghazi or something.
Yes.
It's not like it just appears out of nowhere. You sort of, you acquire this thing because you understand through other people's studies or something that you can use this. You know what I mean? But it's not. There's no. It's sort of just there for you to use with no explanation. It's very unsatisfying from that perspective. Yes. Anyway, we move on.
Do you want to read the new act?
Yeah, so the new act goes from In Pursuit of the Dead to In Pursuit of the Living. In the mist comes the revenants of the past, witches who were executed hundreds of years ago and whose hateful spirits have returned to wreak vengeance upon the living. Okay. If you can banish them, you might learn more of the coven's secrets. There's a sort of a fast action or a sort of a lightning bolt action. Flip your location over. Group limit once per round at each location, so you can make the action to flip it over. Clues cannot be discovered at non-spectral locations. So if you want to get clues, you've actually got to flip them over, right?
Yeah, and we've just dished clues out Correct. To all of those, to every location on the board.
Yes.
But we now can't get those clues until we flip them.
Yes, exactly.
The spectral clues.
Yes, yeah. How exactly we're getting into the spectral realm is not exactly clear, but anyway, we are. And the objective is banish as many heretics as you can. If there are 4 copies of unfinished business in the victory display, advance. Now, you wouldn't know what that is because you have to go through this process with the heretics to get to that, right? Which is...
Yes, and there are 6 heretics, of which only 4 will be in the game at random.
Yes.
So the unfinished businesses are going to be different.
Yes, that's right.
Because I think the front of each heretic's identical, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's not like they have their own individual personality on that side. They all have the same 4-2-3, and then they get +2 investigator health. They're all monster, geist, witch, spectral elites. And while a heretic is at a non-spectral location, it gains aloof, cannot be engaged or damaged. So if you don't flip it over into the spectral side, you can't get clues and you can't engage these heretics. Yeah. Sort of just floating.
It's also +2 health per investigator as well.
And then you can do another kind of lightning bolt action to spend a clue and parley with them to look at their other side without resolving the text. They can peek at the other side, essentially. And then forced after the heretic is defeated, flip it over and resolve the text on the other side.
Yeah, so basically we've got to defeat 4 heretics.
Yes. And they are individual on the other side, aren't they? So
yes, I think they are. Yeah. Yes, they are. So they're all, like you said, they're all 4 fight, and so for example in a 2-player game they're going to be 6 health. So they're not a knockover.
No.
And there's 4 of them that we have to deal with on all of those sort of 4 outer locations.
Yep.
So, yeah, a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. Shall we read their backs now, do you think?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we could be peeking at them to see which ones we stand a better chance of dealing with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Shall I take
go for it?
First one?
Yeah.
First one I have, it starts, "They stole it from me, give it back to me." The spirit searches its surroundings frantically and grasps at you with desperate eyes. It must have lost something important. But what? Keep this card in your threat area, this side face up. So that touches on the tablet. Yes, the tablet triggers forced abilities on unfinished businesses in your threat area. And the skull is... Oh no, that's the victory display. Yeah, so yeah, that affects the tablet figure as these start appearing in our threat areas. So keep this in your threat area. So forced, at the end of the round, you must either lose 2 resources or flip it back to its enemy. Then as an action, if you're at the chapel attic and it has no clues on it, test book or foot, intellect or evade, of 4. And if you succeed, the ghost is banished. And then when the ghost is banished, in an old cobwebbed trunk, you find all sorts of items belonging to the deceased. The sight of a crow's skull amulet dipped in metal causes the ghost to gasp. "I'm sorry, sister, I'm sorry," it weeps. Add this card to the victory display. So effectively, we've got to fight each of these, and then we have a mini quest to do.
Yes. Yeah, it's quite a lot. It's quite a bit to do.
And you've got to, and they're going to be constantly draining stuff. So this one will drain your resources if you don't do it that turn. But if you're not at the chapel attic, you can't do it that turn. So you've got to get to the chapel attic, draining resources as you go. You might be on the completely opposite side of the map.
Exactly. And peeking would be good because you don't want to end up with one of these where, say, you're just low on book or foot. You're not a book or foot investigator. You kind of bit stuck with it then, aren't you? So,
yeah, leave that one to the other guy.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, so what we're getting is they're tormented ghosts, and like you say, the quest is very video gamey. It's a bit like Ragnarok and whatnot. It's a bit like those little quests where there's ghosts who are very unhappy in
yes
I can't remember, sorry, and you run around and do things for them and come back, and then they they whisper away. It's a bit like that, isn't
Definitely.
it? Yeah. This other unfinished business is can't be dead. Keziah promised, we cannot die. The spiteful wraith does not relent. Your words cannot reach it, but perhaps you can lay it to rest by force. Flip this card back to its enemy side. It makes an immediate attack. The next time it is defeated, it is banished. So this one you have to fight twice, I'm assuming.
Oof.
Yeah. If you looked at this side by resolving this heretic's parley ability, flip this card back to its enemy side. It makes an immediate attack. Okay. That's quite rough, that one, isn't it? Do not read this until it's banished. With the final cry, the hellish spirit recalls upon itself and dissipates into thin air. Add it to the victory display. That's one for a fighter.
Yes. Yeah. Next one I have is my bones. What have they done to my bones? The wraith is mangled and corrupted nearly beyond recognition. Something has torn through its insides and ripped its soul to shreds. So again, keep this card in your threat area. So this is an ongoing mini mission again. Forced, at the end of the round, you must either choose and discard 2 cards from your hand, or flip this card back to your enemy side, to its enemy side. And so you've basically got to get to Heretic's Graves and test willpower or fight of 4. And if you succeed, you banish the ghosts. Digging up the bones was hard work, but as the spirit peers into its open grave, you can see its humanoid shape clearly for the first time.
See, when I look at this, it's going to be a Seeker that would be best for this, discarding cards, and Seekers draw cards generally. But it's willpower and fight that you need to kind of banish it.
Or maybe someone like Patrice, who refreshes her hand every turn.
Yeah, interesting. The next one is, come join us. The Spectre's voice is soothing and melodic. Well, they're very distinct personalities, aren't they? Its words seem to make sense. You can at last be at peace. All you have to do is take its hand. Flip this card back to its enemy side. It makes an immediate attack for the remainder of the scenario. This enemy cannot be defeated by any means. Its parley ability can only be activated while at a spectral location, and it costs +1 clues per investigator to trigger. The next time this side is resolved, the ghost is banished instead. If you looked at this side by resolving this heretic's parley ability, resolve the above text as though you had just defeated this heretic. You do not read this until it's banished. You spurn the creature's offer, remembering once more why you've come here. It lets out an agonizing shriek and returns from whence it came.
And the next one I have is burn. Let it burn. Let it all burn. The charred ghost thrashes and howls in agony as though in a constant state of torment. You cannot ease its suffering, but perhaps you can bring it justice. So again, mini mission time. At the end of the round, you've got to either take a damage or flip it back to its enemy side. So the action on this one is to be at the gallows and with no clues at the gallows, then test willpower or evade of 4, and if you succeed, the ghost is banished. And the banished text is that the fire spreads quickly, consuming the old wooden platform hungrily. The spirit's form twitches with a strange satisfaction. Add this card to the victory display.
And finally we have, bring me to him, I wish to see my love again. The thing moans and wails with sorrow in between hollow, echoing sobs. There must be some way you can bring it to peace. At the end of the round, you must either take a horror or flip this card to its enemy side. Action, if you're at the chapel crypt and there has no clues on it, test book or fist of 4. If you succeed, the ghost is banished. You find a nameless coffin and remove the lid. The spirit weeps as it reaches out to touch the body inside, remembering the love it once held in its heart. Oh, there we go. So some of them are relatively nice and some are nasty.
Yeah, there's sort of a pattern there as well, isn't it? 4 of them are take them to a location and do a test, but draining some sort of resource you have on the way. Yep. Where one of them is fight it a second time, one of them is parley it a second time.
Yeah. So there we go. There's the heretics. There we go.
And remember, we'll only have 4 of those out, so it will be a different mix each time you play as well.
So can I ask, they're called heretics because they're witches? Is that the idea? They were witches who were hung, or executed in some way.
So.
Is that the idea? I think so. It's not. So this game sort of has this sort of ambiguous.
Well, they're not heretic witches, but they are heretics because they're witches.
Yeah. So the game sometimes seems to be on the side of the witches, or quite positive about witches, and other times negative. It sort of jumps between the two. So yeah, it's hard to know. Anyway, yeah, interesting. There we go.
So I'm guessing somewhere amidst all of that, the agenda will probably have advanced.
Yes, I think that's pretty reasonable.
So if I'll pick... Oh no, do you want to pick that one up? Because I think I just read the last
Yeah, sure.
heretic,
It says, Death's Descent. The sobs of the dead echo throughout the woods, accompanied by murmured promises and whispered threats. But when the spectral mist blots out the sky, all turns quiet and still. Your hair stands on end and you begin to tremble. Every fibre of your being screams flight. The hunter has smelled the blood of its prey, and now it has come to claim your fate. So if that wasn't enough for us to do, we now got flip each location to its spectral side, put the set-aside spectral watcher enemy into play, he's back, or she's back, or it's back. Shuffle the remainder of the set-aside watcher encounter set into the spectral encounter deck along with the spectre discard pile. So we again have our friend floating around making mischief.
Yes.
Yeah. Which, makes things quite difficult.
So that reveals the new Agenda 2A, Death's Approach. Hangman's Hill is plunged into darkness as the spectral mist invades every inch of the woods and the chapel. Somewhere in the mist, the Watcher spies its prey with eyes as empty as graves. And again, locations cannot be flipped over or back to their non-spectral side, should I say.
Yep.
Yes.
We've got another 7 doom threshold to get everything.
Oh, of course,
done.
yes. Thank you.
I know.
I ought to read the card fully. I am terrible at that.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So I guess we've got the spectral watcher chasing us again. We're trying to deal with these heretics.
Yes, I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds relative. All we've got to do is just deal with these 4 heretics, take them to wherever they need to go, and they're banished and they're sorted. But there's lots of effects that sort of snowball, aren't there? So some of these locations where the X of the shroud was the number of geists in play, and each heretic was a geist, and I think the spectral watcher was a geist as well, so that's like a big boost that then gets easier as you deal with them. Whereas another one is +1 shroud for witches in play. All the heretics are also witches.
Yes.
So there's lots of those sorts of things going on each of the locations, which is sort of like the theme of the Circle Undone, isn't it? Lots of things getting triggered.
Exactly.
To keep things that you need to keep track of throughout the game.
Yes, and of course the encounter deck's doing everything it can to mess you up at the same time. And
yes, there's a bunch more witches in the encounter deck as witches and geists as well.
Exactly.
Couple of each.
Yep.
And then all of these, lots of curses and things.
Exactly.
As well.
And now we've got spectral versions of all the locations, which have all got fun things on them, things as well. So
yes, of course, we need to look at those now, don't we?
Yep.
So that probably is the right point to do that.
Yeah.
So shall I start with Hangman's Brook? We'll do it in a similar sort of order to last time. At least it still has the resign option, but that beautiful autumnal view of the river and the woods looks slightly less inviting now, shall we say? I think it's not sure if that's a bridge or some sort of dam, but that's all sort of collapsed, and is that a wisp of smoke supposed to be rising in the middle, or is that a great big branch?
It looks like wisps of kind of ghosts or malevolent spirits floating around to me. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Probably spectral stuff. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Funny that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this location has switched from being four shroud and 1 clue per investigator to being 1 shroud and no clues. It'll just inherit whatever clues were on the other side. As an action, resign. Whose bright idea was this anyway? Again. but it now has a haunted trigger, so take 1 damage, and until the end of the round, the above resign cannot be triggered.
It's only 1 shroud, so I think you're pretty safe with that. But other cards do trigger haunted abilities, don't they? So it's not necessarily...
That's true.
Yeah. The haunted fields look fairly similar, but again, there's more this sort of black mist around. 3 shroud location. Each spectral enemy at haunted fields gets +1 horror value. Haunted, move the nearest spectral enemy once towards haunted fields, and this actually has some new flavor text. The realm tolerates no life whatsoever. Victory won.
And then the abandoned chapel. So that it's basically the same scene, but it's dark and full of ghosts, including somebody at the pulpit preaching. So yeah, that switched from it stays 2 shroud, but now during the mythos phase, each investigator in the abandoned chapel gets -1 to each skill. Oh, that's the same. So actually, the only difference is there's a haunted ability now. Until the end of the round, you get -1 to each skill. And there's another bit of flavor text. In life, malfeasance. In dying, reconciliation. In death, reverence.
Does that stack then? If you get the haunted thing, you end up with -2 to each skill. Am I reading that right? I guess you would, right?
I suppose it haunt is only triggered by a failed investigator, isn't it? Or
of course.
some other...
Yeah, and the others in the mythos
or some other
phase.
failed skill test.
Yeah. So they will.
Yeah, so I suppose if you fail a test in the mythos phase and you pull the Elder Thing token, that will trigger a haunt. So that would be double at that point.
Yep. Ouch.
But yeah, it's not much fun either.
No. And then the chapel crypt is, well, I mean, it's still spooky and it's a crypt, just greener in this one. Well,
the lights have gone out.
Yes, the lights have gone out. It's still 6 shroud, and it's the same thing about while there are no hex treacheries. There's 2 versions, aren't there? Sorry, those are the same, but then there's the haunted piece. So on one, the haunted piece is find the topmost hex treachery in the standard encounter discard pile and put it into play in your threat area. And the other is haunted, spawn the top card of your deck face down engaged with you. Treat that card as a reanimated dead enemy with 1 fight, 1 health, 1 evade, 1 damage, and the monster trait. So there you go. You get an extra thing fighting.
That's quite interesting about that first one. Pulling. So basically, you think, now we're on the spectral encounter deck. We don't need to worry about what's in the old encounter deck. No, you're going to pull some hexes out of that and take them as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so the chapel attic. There's quite a drastic change of the art on this one. It's sort of previously it was sort of the sun shining through a broken window with a couple of birds. Now it looks like tentacles of foliage or whatever swarming through the window, and all the furniture's broken.
Yeah, it's quite different.
Quite an ominous one, that one. So the shroud stays the same, 4 or 8. The wild investigating and the forced, I think, stay the same. The reaction stays the same. The only difference is they've both now got a haunted ability, or trigger should I say. The 4 shroud one is haunted, discard a random card from beneath chapel attic. So that was when the location was basically stealing your cards, and then you would have to investigate to get it back, so you could actually lose them. And then the other one is haunted, discard a random card from your hand, or 2 cards instead if you have 5 or more. So basically both options will lose you some cards.
Yes. The Heretic's Grave now has basically, as you would expect, ghosties and things kind of wafting around, Scooby-Doo style in here. And again, same thing except for the haunted, and there is some flavor text. So on the 4th shroud version, haunted says heal 1 damage from each heretic and each witch enemy in play. And the other one has haunted, reduce your base willpower to 1 until the end of your next turn. And the flavour text is, "Will you be remembered?"
Okay. And then last of all we have the gallows. It's basically, there's not a huge difference in the art, only that the leaves on the trees have all gone and it's dark. I think that's, and there's some wisps about. So the X version is basically the same, but gains the haunted ability. Discard the top 3 cards of the spectral encounter deck, and if a Geist was discarded by this effect, draw it. Whereas the other one is discard the top 3 cards of the standard encounter deck, and if a Witch is discarded, draw it. And both have the same flavour text: one last gasp.
Ooh, it's a bit gruesome. Yeah.
Very bleak.
Yes. So there we go. So you stumble around trying to get these heretics and whatnot. Not easy. Not easy at all.
No, we failed, if I remember right, quite badly.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough scenario.
All of these things sort of snowballed, didn't they?
Yes.
We'd got witches, we'd got geists, we'd got the heretics, we'd got the spectral watcher, and then you've got all of these abilities that count up with the number of witches and geists and things at each location to make tests worse. And yeah, we really struggled. Yes. But then again, we really struggled, whatever.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So, which should we flip first here? Should we assume that we've got the full copies?
Okay. Yeah, do you want to take that?
So, was it worth it? Good question. When the last of the ghost vanishes, she leaves behind a remembrance, something which does not fade along with the rest of her ephemeral form. Curious, you step forward and examine the object. It is a cornhusk doll wearing a black cloak, which with locks of hair made of red dyed yarn. You're not sure what significance the doll holds, if any. Nonetheless, a Pyrrhic truth speaks to you from its expressionless face. Was it worth it? The doll seems to say. In your campaign log under mementos discovered, record Cornhusk Doll R1. There we go.
That's quite interesting, because I would think I was carrying around a Cornhusk doll for most of Hemlock Vale as well.
It's sort of like a folk thing, isn't it?
Had a little bit of lipstick on it, this one did. Didn't have a black cloak. And then the alternate version then is if we ran out of time or got swarmed by the enemies or whatever, and we basically just failed to deal with the 4 heretics before the time limit. Death's Embrace. Light fades as the anomaly closes in around you. Trees, graves, walls, all is enveloped by the otherworldly mist. Deep in the murk, worlds away, and yet drawing ever closer, the cold light of the watcher's gaze radiates before you. It is time for your reckoning. R2.
Yes. Shall I take R1? Yeah, so it's fairly short, actually, very short. It's not like pages of text here, but no resolution was reached because each investigator resigned. Proceed to resolution 1, or you get resolution 1, obviously, if you finish the acts. Rays of faded sunlight stream through the haze, and the unnatural mist finally recedes. As it does, Hangman's Hill returns to its original state. No other spiteful ghosts emerge to haunt you, and the witches who summoned them have retreated into the shadows once more. You hope that you have done enough to prevent the rest of Arkham succumbing to this horror. In your campaign log, record X heretics were unleashed unto Arkham. X is the number of heretic enemies in play. If it is Act 1, instead record 4 heretics were unleashed unto Arkham. Oh, I see, if you resign. Yeah, basically you resign before. Which is kind of tempting in a way. If X is 3 or less under mementos discovered, record Wisp of Spectral Mist. Each investigator earns experience equal to the victory X value of each card in the victory display. So it's almost like it's sort of saying that you kind of get as many as you can and get out while you can, basically.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have realised that when we were playing it, because that we might have just run for it rather than
exactly
get defeated.
Exactly.
And so the main difference there between a full success of defeating all four and resigning is literally just whether there were any heretics unleashed.
Yep.
So you only find the wisp of spectral mist if you didn't fully succeed. No, sorry, I'm reading that wrong. X is the number of heretics in play. Yes. Right, I'm reading. Oh, yes. So actually, you only discover the wisp of spectral mist if you defeated at least one heretic.
Correct.
If you didn't defeat any heretics, you don't get any mist.
Yeah, correct.
That's right. I was reading it wrong first of all. Okay, so I'll take resolution 2. So this is either the agenda advanced or you were all defeated. Resolution 2. Resigned to your fate, you fall to your knees. The mist parts. Time slows to a crawl as the watcher emerges. Its spectral form glides along the ground, approaching with the slow surety of a ticking clock. You close your eyes, unwilling to look upon your killer. Your fingers dig into your palm and you brace yourself. The moment passes. When you open your eyes again, the creature is gone, and along with the spectral mist. Have you been spared? In your campaign log, record the investigator survived the watcher's embrace. And then it's the same thing about number of heretics unleashed and whether we discovered any wisps of mist, and the victory display as well.
And why? Why were you spared? This is, you know what I mean? Plenty of other people have died at the hands of the Watcher, you know. It's weird.
Yeah. But maybe we'll find out next time.
And this is the thing. It's not like you stumble back to the Silver Twilight Lodge or stumble back to your house or... You know what I mean? Again, it's just, okay, we'll just leave it there. It's like...
Almost okay. Well, it's only scenario 4. We can't properly kill you just yet. Let's save that for later. Yeah.
But again, it just leaves you like, okay, you know, you could literally have inserted this scenario anywhere along here. You know what I mean? It could have gone as the second of the first scenario. There's no... It's not linked to anything else. It just sort of sits in space. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
Yes.
So there we go.
There we go. So what do you reckon, Kevling?
Mechanically, I quite like the idea of having the two different encounter decks depending on which version of a location you're at. But I just feel like most of Circle Undone, it's introducing too many things to keep track of. Maybe it's just my simple brain can't cope with this sort of thing. But I think it overly complicates things. I think I've been saying that every week, haven't I? That we've done this podcast.
It's true, though. It is true that it does seem to overcomplicate things, but not in a way that's fun. You know, like you could have the haunted ability just on the regular cards, right? Or some kind of lookup table of haunted abilities or something, like all this sort of flipping cards over to their spectral sides and all this kind of carry on. It's like, okay, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and when you overlay then the heretic mechanic as well as everything else, it starts, like you say, to add up to a big cognitive load.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe I just like simpler games. Let's go back to Dunwich.
I don't mind the heretics, though. I thought the heretics was quite a nice...
Yes, I really like that idea of almost having a mini mission for each
I actually really
boss.
like that. And they seem to all have their little personalities and you know,
And you can understand them not having the personality on the front side because you're not supposed to know which is which at first. They're just a ghost that's rampaging around that area of the woods.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you've interrogated them, I guess, you can start to glimpse what they actually were after and try and help them.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. The only thing I'd say is that knowing about them doesn't push the story forward at all. You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to be here.
No. They're like little side quests,
They're little
aren't
side
they, effectively?
quests. And if you think about why we came to Hangman's Hill was to learn more about what was happening, and you come away not knowing any more than you did before. You know what I mean?
The only thing you come away from is a wisp of spectral mist if you were able to sort out one of the heretics.
Yeah. Like, you're supposed to be here to learn something, but they don't. And you would think this would be an opportunity to give you some information about Arkham's history or background or why the witches are doing what they're doing. But it gives you nothing. Like, you know nothing. You know no more than you did at the beginning. And this is, again, one of the problems with this campaign. It sort of says, oh, go and do something and find out more, but you end up not really knowing anything more. You know what I mean? Whereas if you do, Dunwich or Carcosa or Forgotten Age, you do something, you do a scenario, you learn something or you gain something. You gain an object, you learn something in each scenario. You know what I mean? In this one, you just do scenarios and you don't learn anything. It's like, okay. Why did we go there? What did we learn? You know what I mean? It's very strange. I don't understand. Yeah, so it leaves a very unsatisfying kind of experience.
It does, similar to what we said earlier, it does feel like they designed a bunch of individual scenarios and then worked out a way of loosely stitching them together, rather than it being one cohesive plot.
Yes, that's exactly what it feels like. It does feel exactly like that. Which is, it's kind of frustrating because it feels like there's a really good story and idea there. It just doesn't seem to be coming out. So I keep waiting for the next chapter to kind of tie it all together, and it doesn't seem to be happening. Hopefully the next one will. We shall see.
Yeah, and it sounds like we are actually going back to the lodge next time.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Because I can just see that the start of the next campaign, the next scenario is, if your members of the lodge do this, if your enemies do that, if you learn nothing, do the other. So,
okay. Right.
Yeah, so
hopefully then
this is kind of probably what you were expecting this scenario to be. Yes, I found out this business about the witches. Let's go back to the lodge and tell them about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas almost though we found this about the witches, then we wandered around the graves for a little bit and nothing happened, and then we went back to the lodge.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Anyway, I'm not going to complain about this campaign anymore. I think I've done enough whinging for one day. So
let me write that down. Yeah. I'm going to write that down for next time.
So yes, we'll be playing the greater good, I guess, and then we'll have a chat about it in the coming weeks. And hopefully we'll learn more from the Silver Twilight Lodge. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and all those sorts of things. And we will see you next time for the greater good. But until then, I'm CrabbyTerror8.
I'm Kevling.
Bye.
Bye. So once more, thank you for listening. We're on all the major podcast platforms, so please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. If you have any feedback for us, you can email us on ftextpodcast@gmail.com or message us on Instagram and Threads at ftextpodcast. So on behalf of CrabbyTerror8 and myself, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.